All right. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to MVP Office Hours. Today is Friday, May 3rd, 2024, episode number 250 plus. I have no idea what the actual number is. Squire can tell us later. We're so excited you're here today. I've missed you all. Quick housekeeping. MVP Office Hours meets on the first and third Friday of every month for the most part, unless we don't. you can find Dale, who's not here right now. He's working on a project, so he couldn't be here right now. But there's me and Dale and Squire are available on LinkedIn. You can also find MVP Office Hours on X, formerly known as Twitter. And you can also visit our Experience Cloud site at mvpofficehours.info. And last place that you're going to reach out to us is mvpofficehoursUS@gmail.com. But when you do that, you kind of close the loop around what's going on. And so we'd really prefer if you met us at the Success Community. And if someone can drop that in the chat, that'd be super duper. Because the Success Community gathers everyone's knowledge and then puts it all together for you. And we can all collaborate with that. All right, next slide, Squire. Whew. All right, so next call is May 17th. So that will be the third Friday. Registration is sitting tight at the bit.ly/MVPOH. You're all welcome to use that link anytime. It's perpetual. You can use it over and over and over and over and over, but you will get an email once you register with us and all that good stuff. So we do invite everyone to share their experiences, insights, recommendations with a group. Everybody's an MVP. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're putting learning at the forefront of your day, or maybe at your lunch hour. I don't know. But we also want you to feel free to post links and resources and answers in the chat. If you can't interject fast enough, just plug it into the chat. If you have a question, please use the things to raise your hand or drop your question in the chat and we will get to you in the order that things are happening. Feel free to share your screen. Don't share production. Don't share private information. Don't share your company's information that can't be recorded because this is going to live on YouTube for a long time. And last reminder is we want you to have fun and we like you to be casual and formal, but we also ask that you keep it mostly professional and positive because we would hate for anyone to have any repercussions because of anything that was said or shared here. I think that's about it. Was that fast? Ooh, 4 minutes. All right. Oh, darn it. Okay, so we've got some upcoming Dreaming events. On the right, Mid-Atlantic, Czech Dreamin', DevOps Dreamin'. I'm really excited about it. I'm talking at Mike, are you in the call? Mike's on the call. Mike's got me signed up to talk at DevOps Dreamin' in Chicago, May 20 and 21. And then Connections follows fast on the 22nd and 23rd. But the Salesforce events, the Education Summit is on May 13th, and then World Tour London is June 6th. So if you're coming to Chicago, make sure you say hi to me. I want to see you. But also community groups, in person and virtual, join those things. We love everyone to engage in the ecosystem. Next. All right. Melissa, I think we bumped Melissa to the front of the line real fast because it's a follow-up from last meeting. And then, all right, Melissa, you ready?
Yep. Okay. So last time I talked to you guys about restricting user changes to personal data in the user record.
Yes.
And I did find out we are doing that because we are using SharePoint as our source of truth, I guess. And they want everything to be read-only in Salesforce so people aren't changing things for that integration. I don't know if it goes both ways or not, but we just don't want them to be able to change things. So I ended up going in, deleting some things from the validation rule I made, and only having it allow system admins and our SA clone profiles to change user fields. And I knew that wasn't going to be enough, but that's what our architect said to do. So that's what I did. And then yesterday, and that was enough. That was enough. He said, just take everything out and make it just those profiles. I was like, okay, that's what we did. And so that was last week. And then this week, just yesterday, someone reached out to me, our product owner reached out and said, this isn't working. we need people to be able to still change their time zones, and they can't do that now, which is what I was worried about because that's not something we could test for. And so whenever you go log in as someone and test some of those pages, it would say, like I could test the individual fields that I had previously blocked, but when it was just the profiles, I couldn't test certain pages within the user settings. And so it did block things that we needed them to have, including granting login access for Salesforce. And yeah, so, and then the time zone, which is the one thing we wanted them to have. So today I went back in and put all the fields back in that we don't want them touching, and left the other profiles as well. So it's if you are these profiles or are trying to change any of these fields. So it's an and or, if that makes sense. So end users can make changes to other fields, which allows them to make those other changes that we needed them to make. And that was enough to give everything that we needed. I know there's still some check boxes and stuff out there that we can't control, but that was good enough. That was it answered our needs for now. So we are leaving it there and leaving it easy and not going the route of doing a flow or anything like that.
Ooh,
Love,
wow.
easy, and efficient. That's great.
Yes.
That was a journey, Melissa. Are you okay?
Yes. And it ended up where I expected it to. So I'm good.
Good. Good.
Awesome. Thank you for the update.
I love
Sure,
it.
thank you guys.
love
Have a
it.
good meeting.
I love it. Bye, Melissa.
Will is going to join us later in the call, so we're going to skip over Will for right now.
All right. Is Molly on? Molly is on. I see Molly's little window. So Molly, you want to unmute and you want to talk to us about bundled price on quote and invoice for CPQ?
There was a lot to that that post, and I didn't want to try to over summarize it, so I'll let you know.
Hi, sorry, this is my first time. You just need me to summarize the ask?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so yeah, this is my first time here, so thanks. Hopefully this is the right forum. I'm a newer user of CPQ and I went through the Trailblazer training, so I kind of got a foundation now. So my next step is I'm trying to do some things within the system, one of which is bundling a price. So there was a lot in the training around making dynamic static bundles, things like that makes sense. But from the practice I've done, it shows the price for each product or component within a bundle on its own line. And for me, for certain situations, I would like those to all roll up into one price. So I just don't know if there's something, out of the box or if someone has done that before. And an added layer, I guess, of complexity would be really cool if we could see the itemizations internally and have just the one price on, those more client-facing documents like, quotes and invoices.
Who's our president CPQ?
I am not the CPQ expert. No, I am not. I am not.
I can tell you right now. Hi, everyone. I don't know what you're trying to do with CPQ, but I had a whole team and I'm still working on it. It's almost 2 years of rolling out. So it's not that easy. But the price on bundles, the bundle is a price. But when you want to show only that, you need customization on that page. Or it will probably be easier to create a template to output that like a PDF. Because on the template, you have a little bit more play of what shows up there. But if depending on which screen are you trying to show the price of the bundle? Because there's a configuration and there is the QLE screen. There you go. Without customization. Yeah, thanks, Pat. That's where I was going. It's not that easy to do. You need somebody that knows how to customize CPQ. Or you can learn how to do it, but
no, that's helpful. Just knowing a place to start is super helpful because again, if there was a built-in functionality, I'd rather use that. But I was kind of getting the impression we have to do some sort of customization. So you said template is one way to go?
I think template is the easiest.
Okay. Okay.
But like on my screens right now, the screen where you see all the bundle that you selected, all the configuration, before you save, then it takes you back to the main, I don't know, to the main quote, price quote. Then that's only for sales. So sales sees that, so the user sees that screen, and there we do manage to have the main product only. But like I said, I had a team customize it, and it's now something that I went in and click. Now I don't know if there could be some checkbox or some settings somewhere to do it. You just haven't found it. But my experience has been, like I said, I had to hire somebody that knows CPQ.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
It's a whole.
you can definitely use the CPQ plugin capability, which operates on the client side, to override the prices that are shown in the UI for bundled products or component products. That you can definitely do, but that is code that does that in JavaScript on the client side. The other approach is in a generated document, you could effectively say, don't implement some logic to say, don't include the price if the bundled product has a parent, basically. And that way you'd have only the parent products with prices shown and not the bundled products within.
Hey, sorry, you said that was a plugin for this to show the parent? I was just trying to take.
Yeah, the first option is only a UI coded change. So basically there's a functionality where you can define in the CPQ configuration settings, CPQ administration page, you can define which plugin you want to use for the quote line editor, for example. And that plugin is basically a JavaScript file. What we've done before is we've actually referred to a static resource where the JavaScript file is located, but all of the code that controls the behavior from a UI perspective only in the quote line editor is controlled by that JavaScript. And that includes overrides, it includes business logic. You can do quite a lot in there.
So yeah, it sounds pretty much what I was saying. You need somebody that can write code on JavaScript.
Thanks. Yeah, this is helpful, and I do have some folks that could help me, but I was trying to provide some high level direction, or at least do my due diligence, suggesting that okay, this isn't out of the box, and here's why. So thanks. That person is probably not me, but I do have some folks who could help me out. So thanks for the feedback. I will go back with these ideas.
Right.
All right.
There is also another product that Salesforce is working on. That it's a little more native CPQ. So maybe look, if you're at the beginning, I would suggest to look into that. Maybe ask your Salesforce rep, because CPQ was basically the way that they explained it to me. It's there was a third-party software that they purchased, and they made it work in Salesforce. Now, the one that are creating, I think it's called Sales Revenue something. It's some other name. And that one, it's a native in Salesforce platform, so it will be a little bit easier to manage. So maybe look into if you're at the beginning. Like me, I'm almost 2 years in, so I can't go back. But anyways, that's all I got.
How do you feel about this, Molly? You ready to go back with what you got?
Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be like, here you go, or as simple as I was hoping, but this will help me. I think someone here earlier said there's a lot to CPQ, and sometimes just giving a little direction will help. So
Okay.
thank you all for the ideas.
Okay. All right. And I have pushed that out to a couple of different resources to see if we can get some traction in the community for you too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we jump, I also wanted to add
Mhm.
one additional thing, kind of to your point. So, Molly, did you happen to post on the CPQ or whatever it's called now? It's like their success community. See if there's other like-minded people that could help there.
Is that the idea exchange?
No, that's why I wanted to double check. So the
There's
exchange
probably
is
not, because to be honest, I wasn't fully sure where to post. I posted here at the direction of a leader within my organization. So if you have a link or something, happy to go there. That's probably where majority of my questions should go, because I work mostly with CPQ.
There are a lot of CPQ groups.
Yeah. And there's probably even an admin group, or not an admin group, it'd be a billing group, but there's probably like user groups that are focused on CPQ as well, maybe even in your region.
Salesforce Revenue Cloud has a group, and let me grab this link for you real quick. I really hate how it gives me this discussion link. What the heck? But this will get you in the right direction with some other like-minded people. Not that we aren't like-minded, but we're not CPQ focused, I think, on this call. But we'll get you going in the right direction, and that's the best we can offer right now, I think.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to like the idea exchange. Someone there might actually redirect you right to the sources you're looking for, but think of the idea exchange as a way to ask for almost like a help desk ticket. Like, hey, Salesforce, can you work on this? And then people vote it up, but you might not get responses that actually solve the problem, but you might get
Mhm.
responses that direct you to a resource. So I just wanted to make sure you were in the right spot and weren't expecting something. So
Thank you, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm kind of newer to this, so I was just following others' advice on where to end up. So
yeah,
thank you.
Hey,
You
that's
bet, and-
that's
and-
half the navigation though, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we are all new once, so don't
Mhm.
apologize. Just keep coming back. We'll help you.
Thank you.
You
bet.
bet. You bet. All right. Let's see. Is Will here yet? No. Yes.
I think
No?
he said 1:30, so
All right, perfect.
we can keep that.
Is Lou here?
Yes, I am here.
Excellent. Excellent, Lou. Do you want to go through your ask?
Yeah, so let me turn the camera.
Ooh, I can hear you better now.
Okay, so we want to know if it's possible to know which accounts have attachments and what's the title of that attachment. Is that possible? I tried with report types with object. I put it on the note, I think, but it didn't give me anything. It's blank. So
Mhm.
I think the only way to know it's with a query. And but I'm not an expert with SQL statements, so I found out, I'm gonna put it in the chat, that I think the content document link, that's the object, I think, right?
Yep.
So I was writing this. So this is so select ID, linked entity ID, because this is the account, right? The account
Right.
ID. But how do I add the title?
So the title is actually sitting on the content document object. So this is a joiner object between the thing that you're connected to and the document itself. There's nothing about the content document link that knows really anything about the parent or the file. So you have to create oh, Stuart, look at you. So you have to query and then look at the related parent to get things on it, which is a challenge. What tool are you using to query?
Oh, I'm using the Salesforce Inspector. Yeah, and I have also access to Workbench.
Yeah, Workbench isn't great, but
Isn't?
I mean,
Which one?
for
Visual
relationship
Force?
queries in general.
Visual Studio Code, or which one will you recommend?
I mean, I think everyone on the call, there's 30 of us have a different opinion on that. What would you say if you were going to tell someone today with no experience the best way to write a SQL query and see related information?
Don't. No, I'm just kidding. That's good. That's me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, flood the chat, friends. Go ahead, flood the chat.
Stuart, you're doing a lot of typing. Do you want to just speak to it?
Stuart, where are you? I don't see you.
ChatGPT.
No,
Well,
no.
that's
Oh my
the-
gosh, no.
ChatGPT,
Comcast
yeah.
is trying to kill me. That's
Oh,
all I'm
no.
gonna say.
Okay,
Okay.
type away then.
So no, you
Wait,
cannot hear my voice or see my face.
I think you can solve this using Dolores if I understand the requirement.
All
Okay.
right, Michael, explain more.
Okay, Lou, let me ask you a couple questions first. Is the requirement to know how many accounts have an attached file with a particular string in its name? Or which accounts those are?
If specific accounts have an attachment with a specific name.
Oh, but they're not the same names across accounts?
You mean the file name?
Yeah.
Yeah, the file name is the same. Yeah.
Okay, so there are people on this call who will be faster than I at figuring out all the parts of the DLRS because of the SOQL query, but you could do a DLRS, declarative lookup rollup summary tool, for those who don't know. You could do a DLRS which would count the number of attached files whose name included the string you're talking about. And that would give you a number on an account. And then you would know if that account had one of the files like that or not. And you could run that against all accounts.
But
How are
that's
you gonna
not a
filter
query.
the title's not on the content document link?
But it's on the content document.
So
You
you're
can
talking about
span that.
hopping through that, hop through the lookup.
Yes. So I don't think I can do it on the fly, particularly not without poking at it a bit, but I'm fairly certain you could write the SOQL for the Dolores and it would span to the file name as part of your criteria. And then it would just count how many it found that met the criteria for each account.
So
What's
very
the
easy.
DLRS site?
Declarative lookup summary, right? It's something DL. I can't.
Declarative
spell.
lookup rollup summary.
Thank
I'll
you.
put
I
a link
lost
in the
roll
chat
up.
in 1 second.
I lost
Thank you.
roll up.
Thank you.
Here's the link.
Awesome.
I think probably what I should really offer is shoot me an email and I'll be happy to jump on the phone with you and help build that Dolores, because this is not the first Dolores you should ever build. This is an advanced Dolores.
Yeah. Well, and so Michael, speak to that a little bit. So that helps if you're trying to roll up that information to a parent record, but does it work if you're just trying to get queries and get like output?
No.
Okay.
But so this is where I was trying to make sure I understood Lou's requirement. I think it
Yeah.
will solve Lou's challenge. If you were looking for output of like a list of accounts that had those files, you don't get it. But in this case, you get a list of accounts that have those files because there are a list of accounts that have greater than 1 in your roll-up field. Or you could roll up, this probably wasn't solve Lou's use case, but you could roll up the name of the most recent file into a field on account, and then you'd be able to, do some sort of reporting around that.
So I have a secondary option, although I'm not saying what you said is not a great one. We use a screen flow and a data table to be able to say, like, search for a string while you're on a record and return files that have that name. And this flow can work its way from the relationship to the parent file and the parent object. And it gives us some feature functionality as well as interact with the version history. So we can put custom fields in that output. So that's another way to get there. It's a little bit more, it requires more user interaction to get that output because you have to like start a flow and ask the question, like, look for this, does it exist? And then give you links, but it could get you there too.
don't have access to create custom fields.
You don't need a custom field, just a flow, right?
No. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I don't have access to do that because I'm sharing this org with DuPont, and TCS has the admin. You
Yeah.
know.
Okay, so Michael and I both are kind of stymied then, aren't we?
I
Yeah.
have another solution that you won't be able to do then, which is create a triggered Apex. Well, I'll call it a framework, but it's a way to capture this in the beginning. So if you capture every time someone clicks on the attached file on an account, and use platform events to save that information back to a table, then basically you're just creating an audit every time this event happens, and you have to do it before the fact, obviously.
That's great.
But then you have a record, you have an audit monitoring record of every single time someone has attached a file to an account. You have to do this all the way ahead of time and set up the trigger so that when that button gets hit, that trigger happens. But it's completely doable, and then you have all of that information. Now, if you don't
it's
have
a design
that,
change.
Oh no.
Oh, Stu, we're losing you again.
We're losing you.
fields or anything like that,
Oh my god.
then this
Stu,
is not going to work for you.
Stu, stop. We lost you, and then you kind of like pittered out, and we want to hear everything.
What happened? I'm melting.
Yeah, pretty much. It was very sad, and I wanted to hear more. Where did we lose him?
Like 5 minutes ago, he's been talking. We've been trying to interrupt him this whole time.
Oh, Stu. Oh, Stu.
I think though, Stu, even your solution, just to reiterate, is like it still would require setup and development access, which it doesn't sound like you have, Lou, right?
Yeah, I don't.
I put the query in the chat. I think that'll work.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, it's select content document title.
Where is
content
it?
document dot title.
In the chat.
Content.
Select content document dot title from content document link where linked its DID is equal to your cat ID.
Okay.
That should work. There are a lot of limitations around the content data model, and you should be able to query if you conditionalize by a single account ID.
Okay.
But you cannot report off of lots of content because it's one of those objects where you can't do that.
Yes. Because I'm not the owner, or because I don't have admin rights, or
No, because content doesn't really like any of us. It wasn't made for us. It was made to be a functional tool for Salesforce to store blobs.
okay.
And so they live on, a special
Weird
object for blobs.
object. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you want to extract them, even as like the most high-powered developers out here, we're doing them one at a time. Like, so, like your queries are also similarly constrained. You just don't have a lot of choice.
Yeah. Okay. So as long as I have the account IDs, the query that you send in the chat, that
Yeah.
would work. Okay.
Yeah. And
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Teamwork makes the dream work. Will's back. Before we do though, Jennifer, we'd love to hear your version of what you typed if you've got a second.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I just, I've been joining these calls off and on when we have a technical solution we can't figure out. And I'm like, I know where to go. You guys are amazing. And so like, you know it. So yeah, I was really excited because we went live today on a solution that stumped our team for like a year and a half. And we have our pre-sales consultants who are kind of our tech wizards, do the great demos for our sales reps. They're obviously a key part of our opportunity management. And they really like using default opportunity teams. And only one of them can be this special role of pre-sales primary assigned. So we had all these default opportunity teams, and on the opportunity page, we had a field called pre-sales primary assigned. And IT had built it without taking into consideration default opportunity teams. And so that field was supposed to populate anytime an opportunity team had one of these special people with that role. And it wasn't working. It was only working when someone manually added the pre-sales user to the opportunity team. So a bunch of you gave some suggestions. Michelle Hansen, I think I grabbed hers, and she wanted, and of course I still don't 100% remember what or know exactly what it meant, but she said to fix this, either an asynchronous path on op create or a platform event at the end of a flow on op create that triggers a PE triggered flow to run, basically decoupling the process. I sent what she wrote to our developer and they built it and it went live today and it bloomin' works. So I'm absolutely thrilled. So I just wanted to say this is the third solution we've implemented directly from this group for our growing company. So thank you guys so much.
Michelle Hansen will be very excited to hear about this.
Oh, well, she was great. And it wasn't just her, like a bunch of you gave solutions, I'm sure very similar. I just happened to hone in on hers.
Yeah.
And it absolutely works. And then we're going to do a little data patch for the, for the older ops, because this works going forward.
Yeah,
And
yeah. What
I just
Stuart
created
said.
a fake op with the default team and it populated right away. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Stuart says you deserve a bonus or a raise.
Well, anyway, you guys are making me look good. I got to tell you, I keep going back to my VP. I'm like, I get tapped into that MVP team again.
Shh, Jennifer, it's okay. You took advantage of the resources at your disposal.
That's right. That's right.
You
Love
good
this
job.
team.
We're proud of
But
you.
thank you. I'm just
We're
here to
happy-
listen today. No
We're happy to
problem.
help.
Yeah. Thanks so much,
Teamwork
everybody.
makes the dream work. We all win together, right? So
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Brainstorming and you came up with solutions. It's great. Like, it's great. This is a resource you have at your disposal.
Yeah, thank you.
Michael, you're crazy. So is Will here? Will.
he did join us. Yep.
Yeah,
Yay.
I'm back. I'm here.
Excellent. Let's
So-
talk about what Will's got going on with.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
person accounts hurt my brain.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the reason I wanted to make sure you were here and spoke to it is because I think we've all had a person account history or at least oh no moment. And so I really wanted to hear it from you so we could all nod and smile and give you thumbs up. So you're not alone. So it's all yours. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I think I'll just high level summarize the post. If people haven't read it, you can read it and get to it because there's a little more context there. But high level, it's a 10-year-old instance that was built out for one particular business. And fast forward 10 years, and now you got multiple businesses using it and different scenarios. And we've got another user group coming in that's going to be a significant power user group, really specifically a call center. And they're going to be interacting with 3 different types of customers, we'll call them. And they all represent pretty much all of the different scenarios. And so really echoing what Jennifer just said, my intention is, what wisdom does the group have? Because we're having some pretty good debates on our very surprisingly small builder admin team of what's our best design path here. One of the primary concerns is we've got all this information on person accounts. What are we going to do? We've got these new people coming in and we want to make the user experience as clean and simple as possible. And so it's sort of a path A, person accounts all the way. Path B, switch everybody over. Path C, blend. And what does that look like?
Before we dive in, I have a $100 question because it could drive the conversation. Is there an opportunity to have 2 different orgs?
Unlikely. It's come up multiple times in many
There it
conversations.
is.
Unlikely.
Beat Andrew to it. Sorry.
I think like 5 or 6 of us all had that same thought too. Like there is a D or an E.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. It's a super important question. So
I'll bring it up again as a
yeah.
part of the discussion. We've talked about it multiple times, and
Yeah. So I like that you've already started to have the conversations not about the solution, but about sustainability, scalability, maintenance, right? That's really the decision point, I think. If anybody disagrees, please jump in. Hybridizing is optional, but it adds a layer of maintenance that is, well,
Stuart.
we both shivered when we heard about it. Yeah, no, agreed. Because what you end up doing is you have effectively like two data models of the same data once you start to use the hybrid, right?
You do. I mean, it depends on how much crossover you ultimately have in your people records, right? So if you have a person who is always, say, a consumer that walks into the stores, that's simple. They always stay as that business thing. But more than likely, I think the scenario I gave was like an employee where they may have two different types because they sit in two buckets.
Just a thought, have you tried thinking about maybe like AI or just Data Cloud to solve the problem? Those generally are like what you throw at any problem you've got, like Data Cloud or AI.
Tell me more.
Well, Salesforce AEs, like if you have a problem, they can sell you Data Cloud or AI to solve it.
Andrew, you're not helping. You're being
Andrew,
Being a pain in the ass.
Andrew, rewind.
Not everyone's in on the joke, buddy. Yeah, okay, let's pause there. So you're right, but it probably doesn't solve his problem, right? Like AI could help, but does it really help? Data Cloud won't help at all today, maybe in a year, right? Because it's the same org. It's not really like the customer data platform model. Unless you're thinking something else. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Sorry.
A second org actually with Data Cloud could actually have some potential there. Like if you did a second org and then Data Cloud, so you have both versions of the people that are unified back together, like that actually could be of value, but it'd be expensive.
Yeah, there it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really briefly, I'm gonna say that none of them are a bad choice. All of them have trade-offs.
It's really what trade-off you like, which one hurts the most and which one hurts the least. It's
and not just today, but in the future too.
Yeah,
right?
they're all gonna hurt.
Well, and so let's talk about that a little bit, right? And I think that's the wisdom of the group is like seeing you don't know what you don't know, and you can't understand what future challenges you might have if you haven't been there, right? So that's where like consulting firms typically have a significant advantage over internal people because consultants have seen hundreds, dozens of orgs and have seen many gotchas. But when you're internal, when you're in-house, you got just the gotchas you know.
Experience Cloud. If you ever have a future of wanting Experience Cloud and you have two different contact effectively versions of it, you could run into issues of like if you wanted a customer login, they would either have to be completely separate, so they'd have two Experience Cloud users, which would mean you'd pay twice possibly for them. Like Experience Cloud could become that's a future gotcha.
If you have blended, you're saying.
If you have blended,
yeah,
that could be a future gotcha.
Really not a fan of blended. Can you explain again, and maybe you wrote it in your article? What is the main pain point or the main hurdle? I've used person accounts for the last 10 years, and 10 years ago it was annoying. I wouldn't even say it was painful. It was highly annoying. But today I use it and I have zero pain. Zero.
Have you just conformed, Stuart?
I was gonna say, do you just have the calluses? Is that what it is? Like I don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah. Can you restate your question, Stuart?
Well, like, what is the big gotcha that has your team all coming up with these different ideas to get out of person account? Maybe I'm missing the big pain point.
Yeah. So I think one of the concerns is primarily about, let's say, using Service Cloud when a request comes in and how that'll come in and be processed by the automatic, like all the automations that'll make sure that the case gets the right account associated with it, the right contact records associated with it. And if you're in a person account design pattern, it's going to query different things based upon how your individual records are structured in the platform. That's one example. I mean, it depends on what bucket you're picking out of.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I could see on that one, we have Service Cloud and we do case routing and we do call routing and we don't have a problem with person accounts.
But are you
the
are you using them as person accounts where you're selling to a consumer like a person, or are you using them as a business entity?
Yeah, we have both. So our main consumers are people that live in houses. So that falls under the model of person account. But we also do have businesses. We have organizations that are related to those people too, those contacts, and there's ways to do that inside of Salesforce as well.
Mm-hmm. And so do you have a person who fits into both buckets too?
Well, people live in households, so that's their main account, but there are dotted line. So there are still relations to if you belong to a trust, if you belong to a council, if you belong to this, there's still relationships to those. So we can have multiple relationships to multiple accounts.
Right. So that's where you're using probably the person account, whatever that object is called, that's between
joint objects. Yep.
Yeah. And how does the case routing work for those, right? So if that person sends in a request, does the care or the customer service team have to make sure, like verify that it automatically got connected one to the right account and then also the right contact?
Yeah. So you have to be a little bit on your guard there. It kind of depends on the scenario. Yeah, you're right. So I think a lot of it is drawn out those process maps. So in our case, if it's the same person, and if Joy calls in for her household, but then she also calls in because she has a trust in a different name, the call center person is going to say, okay, so are you calling on the trust? Then they're going to relate that case not to her, but to the trust, and so it'll be an account-based case, not a contact-based case. So it's all about situation.
Right. And so that's become more of a training on the business process piece, and you may have some screen flows or other things that help the end user do it, but
yeah, you're right.
Well, and maybe like take that one level back too, and instead of saying we have a blended situation, how do we handle X? Maybe the real question is, we're going to handle X because we have this blended, like revert pivot it. So it feels like you're trying to solve the possibility, solve it with process. You know what I'm saying? So like, if I put words in your mouth, when Joy calls in, I don't have to care about whether it's the right contact or the right account. Our process is, this is how it works. And then you're not solving a problem, you're creating a solution, right? Am I oversimplifying that statement?
That makes sense to me. I mean, it's
really. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think Joy is sort of in the Joy's getting picked on. Joy has said basically where I kind of sit on this is each scenario has its own trade-offs, and you're gonna have to make hard decisions on which scenario you like, or you find least painless, or is the optimal path.
Sure. Yep. And then be willing to like call it out and solve it. So like I call it chicken littling. Like very often we get so caught up in the what ifs that you don't solve the problem because of the what ifs. Instead, you solve the problem and then you identify the what ifs as, okay, and here's how we're going to solve that problem. We know it. It's not what if anymore. Now it's what do we do with next?
Yeah. Well, and I think the wisdom too of the group is like Andrew's great comment about the Experience Cloud gotcha. Like that is a great piece to bring with the trade-off conversation, and Squire about the solve for the process. Again, I mean, that comes up all the time. Solve for the process, not the chicken little, the sky is falling.
Right. Like I think about the case question is like, Sure, that is a concern. Here's how we're going to solve it. Tell me what the gap is now, and we'll solve that too, rather than just being frozen in the unknowns, right?
Which presumes you're leaning into one scenario, though, whether it's
Yes,
a
I mean-
blended or person or whatever.
Absolutely.
I'll just say this, I'm not gonna tell you not to do blended, but if I was your architect, I would suggest not, because of downstream consumers of the data. If you have any, that being that in a blended model, you've got different kinds of data. So now you've got a different data model for A versus B. And then how does that affect your integrations of that data going downstream? And how does it affect the data office? Like if you're using snowflakes or whatever, where you're storing the data long term. And so if somebody's then 6 months later looking at that data and saying, why do we have all these different kinds of fields or different kinds of record types for something that should have just been a contact? I'm like, well, because that was a blended decision or blended data decision that if you're going to go that way, then go that way, but have it documented of why and what that actually means to your org 6 months, a year, 5 months, 5 years down the road.
Right. And without getting too lost in the, well, what about in 5 years? Because who knows where AI is going to take us or data cloud is going to take us in that time frame, or what new features Salesforce is going to come out with at the time. So I do want to have a little airtime to the multi-org conversation, since like half of you basically that was your first question. So can we talk through that scenario a little bit?
I tend to always talk. Who else was on board of like, don't try to commingle, create a new org? Mary, you took the time to write something up. Is there something you want to add while we try to vote on who gets to talk next?
No, I kind of put it all in the comment.
Fair enough.
I
So-
mean, it also, I think, depends on your user population. Like my user population could not at my old job could not handle 2 different data models. It's just like they couldn't deal with it.
That's one of the concerns, one of the big concerns.
So is it fair to say from everyone who is like 2 orgs it has to do with being able to create a demarc in the data modeling. So rather than having that blended and now handling the challenges of how do I know one is a contact or an account or both or neither. Now you're basically saying data looks like this on one side and this on the other. And now this problem you're solving is how do I integrate those 2 systems, but I know exactly what the systems look like. And you've got you just end up with different challenges. And the challenge is not how do I make sure that my one org can do all things. Now the challenge is how do I give users the data they need? And there's tools to help with that too. Multi-org tooling is all over the place, everything from Connect to Data Cloud. Andrew will come back to you and be like, that's a great example of where Data Cloud slides in, right? And Experience Cloud too, right? I mean, once you've got multiple orgs, you've got some great ways to handle 2 different data architecture decisions. But now you've got decisions like, okay, well, you know what? Now we're likely going to have some duplicate data and multiple URLs and domains, and how do I ensure that my user base knows why they're in org 1 or 2, or do I now have to have some sort of integrated pathway so that a user doesn't know there's 2 different orgs, but there are 2 different orgs. So you've got now you raise up different questions, and how do I solve those?
I came in late to this convo. I guess, is the need for 2 orgs a given versus having them all in a single org? Like like my last company, we had 3 distinct lines of business in one org. And we didn't have multiple orgs. We had to manage separate business processes based on like regulatory and non-regulatory reasons. So that would be one question. I think multi-org, the assumption here is too that you're using a Salesforce product to layer on top, but depending on the size of your enterprise, like we use Tableau to unify a lot of our data. I think the larger the organization, the likely Salesforce isn't going to be their hub.
Yeah, Mary, that's a good point. So some of the reasons why you might split up an org is that your contacts the customers you're trying to service to are different. They're just of a different kind, and that could be geographically or culturally or whatever. The users, your Salesforce users, are completely different, meaning they might be different orgs or different companies or different brands or whatever. The business process that you're trying to put into place is completely different. On one side, you're trying to service the person accounts are like households, they're direct consumers that you're trying to service. On the other side, it might be a B2B model where you're actually servicing to a company that has members that they're trying to sell to. And those, for whatever reason, your business decides those processes cannot handle on the same org. So we must split them up. There could be other reasons to split them up, but those are usually the three main reasons why companies split up orgs.
And typically, if you do from like a consumer standpoint, are you just going to market to them different, say, 800 phone numbers for different call center routing? If you have a multi-org?
I mean, I think you have to, right? You have to have some sort of, unless you've
I
got
mean,
like
I
a-
guess it depends on how your IVR works. I guess you could have a static number if the telephony system could handle the IVR routing to two distinct orgs. I don't know enough about that side of the equation, but I would think maybe like if you had like data residency concerns, or maybe like for us, we had discussed a few years ago whether we were going to need to split our order. For us, it was FedRAMP, and having to lift out a whole segment of the org because the rules around GovCloud are pretty extreme, and it's not a huge part of our business, but a lucrative part.
So one other thought to chase, since Stuart, you have shared that it seems you're in a B2C model and have been for a while. Do you guys use a lot of Einstein functionality, and do you find that limiting being in the B2C model for those B2B type accounts?
We do not currently use a lot of Einstein, and it has nothing to do with our org. We could talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I fear nothing. I think we could turn on, probably, we'd start out with some basic stuff like case classification and account rating and things like that. But no, I don't see how the account model would deter us in any way.
Got it. Well, because one of the differences between a B2B and a B2C is the person account relates to itself primarily first in the person account model, and so that's where assumedly some of the Einstein functionality and built-in stuff in a B2B model, it knows that person A is directly related with this account, as we're in a B2C model or a person account model, it's directly related to itself first.
Well, when you say Einstein, you're talking about AI. Einstein's just like is lots of things.
Yeah, it's
good question.
Yeah, it's not the new stuff. It's not the GPT. It's not the new stuff. It's the pre-existing,
like prediction builder and like
next best action and things like that.
Yes, all those things. Yeah.
We're quickly running out of time, and unfortunately, I know I have a hard stop. Joy, I think you do too, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I have one really quick question that before we get too far off the reservation. Is it fair to say, by definition, the person account model is the intention is that you could run both. You could still treat it like a non-person account data architecture when you need to, regardless of complexity. You can, right? Like there's no reason, like we're quickly assuming that it's going to break, but it's designed to be able to do both, right?
You can do both, and you can move a person, like you could, if someone creates the wrong record type, because you have the same object, different record types, you can move people between if you had to.
Sure.
That was our biggest annoyance, or my biggest annoyance when we did both in the same org, is people don't understand the data model and are like, oh, I created it as a regular account, and then I'd have to convert it.
But look at it, because fields either exist on the account or the contact,
Right.
And in person account, they're gonna exist on either one. So if you're looking at a person account, dive into those fields and see where's the phone number live? Does it live on the contact or live on the account? And
Well, I would say, Stuart, too, that also depends on how versed you are when you turn them on. Being a novice admin,
yeah.
when we did it, I created most of mine at the account that should have been at the contact level. So I would say like the mileage varies also based on like the education of the admin.
But another reason to dive into it then, because then you know, like, here's where my data lives. And also good for Einstein, because when Einstein goes to look at your data, it's going to make assumptions based on what data you use and where it lives.
Yep.
The reason
Okay.
I asked that question is because what I wanted to ask the group to kind of speak to real quickly is we of course are assuming really distinct business processes, aligned business needs, complex data, but like if we don't know anything about it and we're just talking about it from the perspective of should you or shouldn't you, like what are the big decision points? So asking about the business, asking about the complexity, of course, asking about the maintenance, the roadmap, like what else should be part of the decision other than it's going to be hard and bad? Like, well, that's up to something else entirely. What else? What are we missing?
The tooling you want to use.
Smart. Okay. And I suppose even like install apps and integrations that maybe are expecting one model or the other now, but in the future.
Yeah. I think also you have to think about your user base too.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if they can't use it, you failed.
Yep. Experience is huge. Cost, right? Multi-org requires maybe double licenses and you might not be able to maintain and sustain that.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, I'm sure you've thought of this, Will, but I just want to make sure we don't lose track of, like, we jump right to the worst possible use case. Pull it back to like one of those early decisions that I'm sure you've talked about. So
Yeah, no, this is perfect. I knew there wasn't going to be a resolution. That's why I brought it to the group, as Jennifer has mentioned. There's a lot of wisdom in this group, and there is no clear answer. So it's hearing the gotchas. And I'm going to go back to Andrew's point about the Experience Cloud, because I know that that's probably going to come up in the future. And so it's, hey, as we're making our early decision, where do we think we're headed here, people?
Ooh, well, I do not envy your task, but I would like to tell you thank you for sharing that with all of us. And I know we're all happy to share our trauma and our experience. But thank you everybody for joining us today. We are just about at the top of the hour, so you have to go back to work, or you got to take a day of PTO or something. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye,
thanks, everybody.
friends. Bye.